since I'm a woman. So women live longer than men, and the literacy rate of population is 99.7%. You can see all of the numbers on the screen. Well, the most important thing in the person's life is, of course, our health. Therefore, social systems in different countries of the world deal with people's health. All people have been sick, like at some point, right? So once we're feeling bad. Therefore, medicine is an important part of life, and Russia has its own medical system. In the whole country, in every city, in every district, there is, we call it polyclinic, or just clinic, but we don't call it clinic, we just say polyclinica. This is a separate building. Polyclinic is a like patient system. Patients come to the doctor themselves. Here you can get treatment from different specialists. You can call a doctor home. This is very good service. So if you have a high fever, polyclinics are available for adults and for children. They are public, most of them, and there are some private clinics. In the state polyclinica, in the state clinic, you can get help for free. A hospital, or we call it больница. A hospital is an inpatient system. Here, patients stay for treatment if they need the constant attention of the doctor. There are hospitals in all large cities and in small towns too, and even in the villages. Like hospitals for children and adults are different. Hospitals in Russia are free so you can always get some medical support and help. Well, but you can also get help by giving money. It's also like you can find some private clinics and you can find some private hospitals. In Russia, there is a system of maternity hospitals. This is a special type of hospital for women. Children are born and stayed for a while here. So we call it роддом, like a house of birth. And women stay here too, before and after the birth of the children. Another system is an ambulance, of course. If someone is suddenly seriously ill and help is needed very quickly, if someone is injured and if there was an accident, so you need to call an ambulance in Russia. Ambulance in Russia is free. Doctors help people just on the spot. If necessary, they are taking people to the hospital. The ambulance phone number is 112 now. This is a number for other emergencies too. So you can call if you need the police, firefighters, there are technical problems with the gas in the house. You also have a special number to call to ask for this service. We say that medicine in Russia is free, but of course the state pays for it. How, like, to get medical care in Russia? How to use a polyclinica, for example, and be treated in a hospital. We have insurance here. In the photo, you see a document. This document, it's on the right. It's a compulsory medical insurance policy. Russian citizens and foreigners who live in Russia will receive it. So all of us have this policy. We receive this policy and can receive different medical care. If there are serious illnesses or if high technologies are needed, you can get help under this insurance. So you can pay for this. You can also treat your teeth for free, but not all types of the treatment can be obtained. So if there are some like extra services needed, for example, for your teeth, then you need to pay. But most of this stuff can be done for free. And also this compulsory health insurance policy, it is called OMS, and you can see it on the screen. Well, part of the medical system is sanatorium. In the sanatorium, people rest and receive treatment. What does a person go to? Like, what kind of person goes to sanatorium? If he needs some rehabilitation after surgery, if a person has diseases that need to be treated regularly. For example, there are special sanatoriums where the heart or kidneys are treated. Sanatoriums are located usually in nature, so they're a little bit away from the big cities, sometimes in a special climate. For example, in the Caucasus, near the Black Sea, and in other places. In the sanatorium, you can be treated for free, but there are also paid programs. In Russia, if we want to play sports, we usually have to pay money. People in Russia like to swim in the pool, go to the fitness club, do yoga, boxing, and other sports. Actually, for example, I'm going to some stretching programs. So it can be both expensive and not very expensive. We choose the options that we are willing to pay for. But there is an opportunity to play sports for free. Sports grounds can be seen near the houses. You can find in every town in your district. In summer, people relax on the beaches by the river, lakes, or the sea. Even in Russia, many people love skiing. We pay once we buy ski. And St. Petersburg, in winter, there is even a free train, Strela ski track. And on this train, you can go out of town and ski there. What about vacation in Russia? What about rest? So how is vacation organized in Russia? We have already said that there is a system of sanatoriums, but we also have typical Russian vacation spots. This is a boarding house and recreation center. They're usually located near the forest and far from the city. The boarding houses are like a bit like an exclusive hotel, but there is a lower level of service. Recreation centers are small houses where there is almost no service. What do people in Russia consider important for recreation? What do they consider healthy? We think it's very useful to breathe fresh air and walk in nature. This is very important for Russian people. For example, in the forest. We think that in summer you need to swim in the sea, river, or lake, and in winter you need to ski. Yes, this is very healthy for Russian people to ski in winter. We don't always do this, but we are sure that this is important. If people work in a government organization, they can also relax at a recreation center or in a boarding house for cheap or even for free. As for culture, in Russia, we love cultural events. Most of people, it's kind of very regular activity to go to the theaters, to the museums. It's a kind of our hobby. So this is a very important part of our life. Tickets to the theater and museums are not very cheap here, but in general, art and culture are available. There are different opportunities for school children, students, and retired persons to go to the theater and museum. They have a discount, special discount for students, for retired person. During city holidays, famous artists often perform for free. This is really a great opportunity to see for free your favorite artist. Theater is popular in Russia because many people can buy tickets. So the theater is very popular. Most people can buy tickets. And also I need to add that for Russian people, if you go to the theater, it's a kind of very high cultural event. So we dress in a very proper way. We're very good looking. We put our best dress on. We put our best costume. So it's not kind of like a very regular, usual day. It's a very special event, and we need to match this day. How do we proceed for the documents? Now, almost all documents can be issued on the website of the state service. You can see it on the screen. For example, there we can ask for a foreign passport, apply for foreign passport, we can say. With this passport, we can travel to other countries. You can see it on the right. I have this passport, and by using this passport, I can travel. On the website, we can also issue a new internal passport. It needs to be changed in 20 years old, in 45 years old. You can also get a new driver license here. Finance, taxes, car, real estate, house, apartments, almost all documents can be proceeded online. In a big Russian city, it's very convenient. So you don't need to go somewhere and wait in a line for a long time. There are two important dates in Russian people's life. It's 14 years and 18 years. At the age of 14, you can get a passport and start working, but we have already said that at this age, you cannot work a lot of hours, and the profession will not be very qualified. At the age of 18, you can already work, so your childhood officially finished. People can get married, vote in elections, and get all the civil rights. And of course, responsibilities. Men at the age of 18 go to the army. Students may not go to the army in universities. We have always, usually, not always, but usually we have a military department. Their students do some military subjects, and after the military department, they become junior officers. Let's talk about taxes and social insurance. How do we pay taxes? Almost all countries have tax specialists because the tax system is complex and only specialists understand it well, right? For ordinary people, the closest thing is their salary. Therefore, foreigners often ask each other, what are the taxes in your country? So in Russia, we need to say that we pay 13% if our income is less than 5 million rubles. We pay 15% if the income is more than 5 million rubles. These are taxes for residents of Russia, people who live and work in Russia all the time. Non-residents of Russia pay 30%, so more than residents. Taxes are paid by our employer. This is the amount of our salary. We don't send information to the tax inspector ourselves. So this is very convenient. So you work for at work, and so you don't need to send taxes by yourself. When we work, our money is also sent to the pension fund. Every month, 22% of our salary goes to the pension fund. This money is paid by the employer. And this money is not from our salary. At the retirement age, people who have worked receive some work pension, receive money. People who have never worked also receive a pension. We call it a social pension. Well, we can talk a lot about work. The work is organized differently in different countries. Probably this is a topic for several lectures, right? Not just for one particular webinar. But in the social system and work in Russia, this is what we need to mention right now. All working people can rest on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. People don't work on holidays. We have already talked about the calendar of holidays in Russia. So you can see it again on the screen. The red one is showing our official holidays. If a person works on a weekend or holiday, he gets extra money for it. Unless the person is a doctor, not a pilot, and doesn't work on a special schedule. At what age do people retire? In Russia, we say this retire or pension. We say pensioner for the person who is retired. Now that age has changed. So and women retire at 56 and men at 61. Another retirement age is for the far north and the far east. People retire earlier there. You already know that it's cold there. So there is a little sun and the climate is very difficult for people. Pensioners receive various benefits. What is a benefit for pensioners in Russia? This is a special cost of services that are important for a person. For example, medical care, transport system, payment for electricity, gas, water in a house, of course, or apartment, tickets to museums and theaters. So retired people usually get a lot of discounts and bonuses. But I must say, pensions, the money you get when you're retired in Russia are very small. We need to say this too, unfortunately. So how do Russian people take care of the elderly? Often lonely elderly people live with the children. For example, mom, dad, kids, and grandma or grandpa. All grandparents usually live separately. Children help them. So this is a very typical situation when Russian adults and children help their parents. If elderly people live alone and it's already difficult for them to take care of the house, buy groceries, they can invite a social worker. This person regularly comes and helps with the housework. There are also public and private nursing homes in Russia, and a lonely old person can live in such house if he or she has health problems and he or she needs constantly medical support. Volunteers often work in the nursing houses. They help doctors talk to elderly people, organize concerts for them, classes, for example, physical education, computer literacy, creativity. But I need to say that again, this is special elderly houses are not so popular in Russia because usually children take care about their parents. So let's talk about maternity leave and children. In Russia, women have the legal right to go on maternity leave. This system was still in the USSR during Soviet period. The vacation was called maternity leave. Dekret, in Russian, the word is dekret. And it's still called this the same way, even now. This vacation lasts for 70 days before the birth of the child and 70 days after the birth of the child. And then a woman can stay on a parental leave for another 1, 2, 3 years. At this time, the woman receives payment from the state, maternity. Sometimes a man can take parental leave, but this is still very rare in Russia. The state also pays maternity capital for each child, approximately 600,000 rubles. So like a mother and the father of the child gets this maternity capital. And with this money, you can buy a house or pay for the education of the children. So this is important. Maternal capital is paid and you only can spend it for a child, on a child. So to buy a house, like bigger one, or to pay for the education. Maternity leave may be less than 3 years if a woman wants or needs to go to work. This is a nursery for children from 1.5 years old. Children can stay in the nursery, not all day, of course, but for several hours when parents are very busy. From the age of 3, the child is sent to kindergarten. We have already talked about kindergartens at the webinar about education system. Sometimes there is no place in kindergarten or parents don't want to give their child there. Then they invite a nanny or a grandmother stays with the child. Usually it's a grandmother who acts like a nanny. There are many additional classes for children in Russia. We think that children should be engaged either in music or sports or drawing and so on. These classes are paid and some of them are free. There are free classes in art houses. In the Soviet Union, they were called the House of Pioneers. Here, children learn to draw, sing, dance, study computer technology. The choice is very large. In summer, a camp is always open for children. Children live in nature, sometimes at the sea, play sports, do some outdoors activities. Usually, children go to the camp for 21 days. Parents pay money for it, but sometimes at work, they can arrange a trip to the camp for a child for free. Well, when it is possible to start a family in Russia? Young men and girls can get married at the age of 18. We already said this. Statistics say that women in Russia get married at about 23 years old and men at the age of 24, 25. However, now in Russia, especially in big cities, young people are not always in a hurry to get married or get married. For example, I'm 32 and I'm not I'm not married still. I need to say that conservative parts of our society, for example, like our previous generation, my parents and my grandparents, of course, a little bit worried about this, because for their time it was not very typical for a woman to be not married at the age of 30 and 32 and more. So most of my family worry about me, but still it's very typical not to be married after 30 in a very big city. So because usually people want to get an education and make a career, of course. In big cities, they often start a family after the age of 30, and this is a very good option, I guess so. As for divorce, in Russia, divorce is allowed if people no longer want to be husband and wife. To do this, they can apply for a divorce without leaving their home online, and after a while, they will receive an answer. In case of divorce, children most often stay with their mother, not father, and the father pays like a special fees, some particular percentage of their salaries. We call it alimente, so the money that the father pays for the child after the divorce. We have already said that in cities, people usually live in apartments. In a small town or out of town, people often live in a house. Apartments and houses are very expensive now. Apartments in a big city, in Moscow or in St. Petersburg, are very expensive. To buy an apartment, people can take a loan from the bank. This is a special loan for like to buy a home. We call it ipoteka. The loan period is about 10, 15, or 20 years. Now about 29% of Russians pay this loan. People pay 30 or 50% of their salary every month. If a child is born in the family can receive maternity capital, as we already said. This money can be used to buy an apartment or a house. Many people have an apartment that their parents, grandparents received during the Soviet period. After the COVID-19 pandemic, it became very fashionable, very popular to live in the country. In recent years, people have become more active in buying houses and selling apartments in the city. Well, in ordinary family in Russia, there is a father, mother, a child, or a second child. A large family in Russia consists of 3 children. There are not very many families in Russia with more than 3 children. Often everyone lives together, parents, children, grandparents, grandmothers, as we already said, look after the children and help with the housework. Many grandparents spend a lot of time with their children and grandchildren too. Well, let's talk about dacha. It's pronounced like dacha from the word dat, that means to give. It's a very important part of our culture. We call it like a dacha. It's kind of a summer house. It's it's a cottage that is not related to the topic of housing. It's part of our social structure. The territory and the house are located on a large territory that are organized by people who do gardening. So we call it gardeners. A dacha is a home for summer. So we don't live there permanently. We just live there for a summer period. But often it is also a warm house. You can live there even in winter. Some grandparents stay on dacha even in winter. The area around the house is about 100 or 600 square meters. Usually there is a garden or vegetable garden. At the dacha, the family rests on weekends, during vacations, and holidays. But pensioners, as I already said, often like to live in nature and work in the garden and live there even like until autumn or in winter. Well, the most popular pets among Russians are dogs and cats. We love animals, and if the dog lives in an apartment, then its owner walks with it at least 2 times a day. In big cities now, there is a rule to clean up after the dog while walking. This way, our cities will remain clean. The main rule is that the dog should be safe for people. So look at the photo. This is how big dogs should walk. We walk with the big dogs in places where there are few people. Cats are usually at home. The city street city streets are very dangerous for the cats. It's a very dangerous place, so usually we don't walk with our cats outside. In Russia, you don't have to pay taxes for a pet, but sometimes you need medical documents. For example, if you are traveling with an animal to another country, you need vaccination documents. If you are traveling with an animal, you need to buy a train or plane ticket for it. So, by the way, there is a My Cat. It's on the bottom, like on the left corner. This is my cat that I took from another country, and he has his foreign passport and he's vaccinated, and he was checked when I was going through Russian airport control. So that's why I right now consider him right now like a Russian citizen. So let's talk about rules and laws. There are different rules that exist in our country. Here are some important rules that you need to follow. For example, the law on silence. You cannot make noise from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and on weekends you can make noise from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. This means that you can't listen to loud music and do construction work. From 13 to 15 o'clock in the afternoon is also a time of silence because small children sleeping at this time. So one more rule you can also need to remember: you can't smoke in public places. So school, universities, parks, at transport stops, near medical institutes, never ever you are allowed to smoke. You can't drink alcohol in public places. And also you are not allowed to say bad words in Russian language, to fight, of course, to break things on the street. These rules are controlled by the police. In all countries, there are different rules for driving on the road and car service. In Russia, many people have cars. This is an important transport for us. However, cars are very expensive, and we can say that this is a sign of prosperity. Sometimes there are 2 cars at 7. There are lots of cars on the streets of large and small cities. What are the Russian rules? We have right-hand traffic. We're driving on the right side of the road. Interestingly, we usually walk down the street on the right too. The speed of movement in Russia is 60 kilometers per hour in the city and 90 kilometers per hour on the highway, 110 kilometers per hour on the high-class road. There are toll rules here. Drivers have to let pedestrians pass a pedestrian crossing, and they do. This is actually, it's very safe to cross the street, to cross the road. So there are video cameras on the road, so they record all braking rules. In winter, drivers change tires, so wheels. There are special type of wheels with metal spikes for cold weather and snow. What documents are needed for Russian, like in Russia for foreigner? If you are a student, you can get information at the university, but there are several important documents. We can tell you about them at our webinar. Number 1 is the passport, of course. Citizens of many countries need a visa. In Russia, a foreigner has a migration card. It must be obtained at the time of entering into Russia. For example, at the airport, all foreigners need registration. It needs to be done after arrival. Registration and other documents for students are issued by university. If the foreigner is not a student and lives and works in Russia, there are other visas and other documents, for example, temporary residence permit, and others. Information about documents should be obtained from official government services. So this is the end of our webinar today. We talked about education in Russia, and our next topic is traditions and values. We will talk about Russian traditions and what is very important for us in our life. So that's about all for my presentation. If you have any questions, I will check right now the chat. and answer
I have,
the questions.
I have at least a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So, I have only two questions today.
Mhm.
The first question is, you talked about divorce in Russia. I wanted to know what is the divorce rate in Russia. And the second question is, can I get citizenship, Russian citizenship by investing in Russia, and how much should I invest to be given a citizenship?
Okay, good question. Let's start from the first one. The level of divorces in Russia, unfortunately, is high. I will check right now in the internet, but I will definitely tell you, for example, my parents are divorced, and some of my friends also have divorced parents. So it's very typical to have divorced parents and divorced family. So let me just check very fast, the latest numbers. So what is said? Oh, wow. So according to the United Informational Statistics System in Russia, in 2020 year in Russia, in 2020, I can say in Russia, about 73% of marriages broke. Yes, very high percent. By the way, but to compare in 2018 and 2019 years, it was less. It was about 65. 30 years ago, it was about just 42%. And during Soviet Union, no, yes, it's about 70 years ago, it was just 4%.
That means every marriage is ending in divorce.
Well, unfortunately. As for the second one question, right now it's really hard for me to answer. I never heard about this particular one issue. So if you invest and you can get resident permission, I guess we don't have this option. If I never heard about this, I guess so. But let me check, and if we do have this kind of option, for the next webinar, I will tell you.
Okay, thank
Mm-hmm. So let me check other
Yeah.
chat.
Okay. Can I just ask one question? Just one. I got ready.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I already actually written my questions on the chat box, but
Yes.
yeah, I was just wondering, yeah, if the government has a benefit if you have a baby in the Russian Federation.
Of course.
The more you
As
have
I told you.
babies, yeah,
Mhm.
the more you have babies, the better you can get benefits from the government, right?
Sure.
Why
And
why do the Russians then just give more birds if there's a benefit from the government?
sorry, why do Russian?
Yeah, give birds like give you guys like have a baby, a lot of babies.
Yes. Okay. I know. I see your question.
Yeah.
Well, because well, in my opinion, I think that Russian people are very conscious about having a baby. And so they're getting ready very carefully. So they think about like good education, good house, good, like everything is good for the baby. And they understand that, okay, if it would be more than two kids in the family, it would be very hard to provide them with all the best benefits, right? So yes,
Yeah.
you are given some discounts, you are given maternity capital, yes, but still it would be not enough if you will have three children. And of course, also as for the mothers and fathers, they also think if they have enough time to spend with their children, to give attention to their children. And Russian people in these questions are very highly conscious,
I
very
see.
conscious. So they all, even for example, they read some books about being parents. They go to some courses, listen to the webinars. So even if I will be asked if I want to have my children, I would never say I would have 3-4 children, because I just know that I would not have enough time for this. And at the same time, all women and all men, they don't stop working. Since they have babies, they continue working. And
I see.
so you can't just like spend time with your children if you have a lot of them.
But the healthcare is free, right? Healthcare,
Education is free, yes,
education
but
is
if you
free,
want,
healthcare is
but
free. You guys
usually,
go to.
yes.
Mhm.
But usually, for example, parents want the best for their children. And okay, for example, they have English classes at school, right? But they
Yeah.
want their children to know English perfectly, like they have Cambridge accent, for example. So they find like extra teachers. They send their children to some, I don't know, foreign camp to London. So this is very important for parents to choose the best. So yes, everything is like free, but to have the best option, not just the average, but the best, you need to pay. And of course, for example, my friend, her daughter going to dancing courses in Russia, and
Yeah.
dancing courses are like cheap, not expensive. But for example, to buy even shoes, the very high like class shoes to be able to perform on competition, it's expensive because it's a very like rare, it's very very expensive. So to
Okay.
travel to some competitions, it's also need to be like to give the payment. So all Russian children have some hobbies, and kind of we can say that parents invest really a lot of money in their children.
I see. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's very explanatory. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Jessica, yes, please, you can ask the question if you still have.
Yes, I have a question. In terms of the law, when you steal something, for example, how long do you go to jail for? And also, is the death penalty, do you guys have a death penalty if somebody does a drastic crime? And also, what are your takes for the LGBTQ community? Is it a taboo in Russia or not? Those are my questions.
Well, the last question, if I'm not mistaken, it's taboo. It's like it's prohibited, this kind of trends. And as for criminals, you ask like how many years a criminal gets after stealing something, right?
Yeah, like for example, stealing something.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me check. So
Because I actually had a classmate who was transgender, but I
Mhm.
don't know if that was allowed, if that's allowed or not.
Well, it is said that yes, for stealing, it could be kind of you need to pay money. It's one of the options. Yes, yeah, and you can be in the prison. Like again depends, but the maximum is about 5 years in the prison for the stealing. But of course, it depends, right? If you steal, for example, I don't know, like someone's car, or if you steal like 5 million of rubles from
Yeah.
hospital, I don't know, like it's every time like yes. So okay, I found the law right now. Yes, if it's not very serious, it's up to 2 years. In the stealing in a very big amount of money, it's up to 6 years. If it's in a huge amount of money, it's up to 10 years.
Yeah, because I see that Russia is a very safe country, actually,
Jessica,
because you can
can
even leave
I
your phone.
can I say something
You
to
can
you, please?
even leave your
Because I've
phone
I've,
open.
I've heard, like I've read from the paper that if you are actually an LGBT or a gay or a transgender in the Russian Federation, I guess you can leave or you can work by being that kind of person, but you cannot promote it to the minors. Like you cannot just wear a rainbow and say like I
Yes, of
am
course.
like that
I mean,
kind of
like, yes,
person.
Oh,
we do
okay.
have these people, but it's not about propaganda of this style. It's never supposed to
Yeah,
be propaganda. So the person, if he has this kind of
yeah,
preferences, he can be this, but not
yeah,
telling people this a lot,
exactly.
like.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was saying that Russia is a very safe country. Actually, you can leave your phone on the bus and find it at the police station, for example. Because in
Mhm.
South Africa, that doesn't happen. Like, it's gone.
Jessica, very nice to hear. Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much for listening today. See you next Monday. Have a nice evening or day. I don't know. Is it evening, right?
It's
Yeah.
evening, yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay, then
evening.
have a nice evening, or how in Russian we say, хорошего вечера, до свидания.
Just
Very
video.
good.
Спасибо большое. До
Thank you.
свидания.
До свидания.